Solomon, son of David and Bathsheba, was born in the midst of a turbulent scenario marked by forgiveness and family conflicts. Imagine growing knowing that her father, David, faced internal and external battles, and his mother, drunk, carried a controversial past. Solomon not only inherited the throne, but also the complexities of an imperfect family. But just like many of us, he received an opportunity to start over and do something grand. Going up to the throne so young may seem scary, right? But Solomon saw it as a great promise. The young king had the world before him, with immense potential to turn Israel into a prosperous nation. Have you ever felt like an opportunity that could change everything? Solomon felt this a mixture of excitement and fear. Deep down, he knew he would need something more than power, wisdom. And the most amazing, God saw Solomon's heart. Even with all the faults around him, the young king was chosen for something special. Its beginning was not marked by luxuries or vanities, but by a sincere desire to get it right. It is curious to think how, sometimes, our greatest opportunities come up when we least expect it, right? Solomon began his journey with the humility of those who knew that alone would not go far. Before leaving, David left a crucial advice to Solomon: follow the Lord, obey his commandments. It's like that advice of a mentor before you face a big challenge. Solomon absorbed each word. His initial love for God was evident, something that would inspire anyone in search of purpose. After all, who never wanted to start something new the right way, right? But what really highlights Solomon was his request to God. Instead of asking riches, power, or fame, he asked for wisdom. Just imagine, given any possible desire, he chose wisdom. Have you ever thought, how many times do we ask for passing things, while Solomon sought something eternal? God not only fulfilled his request, but also gave him wealth and honor, showing that when we seek the essentials, the rest comes as a bonus. This brilliant beginning is a clear lesson. When we put God in the center, the doors open in ways we haven't even imagined. Solomon began with his right foot, showing that true success is born of genuine faith. But as we will see, maintaining this faith along the way is the real challenge. After all, how many times have we started well, but we get lost halfway? Solomon not only dreamed big, he made it happen. The construction of the Jerusalem temple was its greatest achievement, a project that many considered impossible. Imagine coordinating thousands of workers, gathering precious materials, and lifting a temple that would be a symbol of the faith of an entire people. It seems even those big goals we set, and when we accomplished, barely believed we were capable. The temple was not just a building, it was a spiritual landmark. Solomon, with all his wisdom, made a prayer of exciting dedication, recognizing that heaven could not contain God, who will save that temple. Have you thought about praying like this, with humility and confidence? This prayer not only honored God, but also made it clear how much Solomon at that moment depended on him. This phase of achievements reminds us that when we use our gifts to serve something bigger than ourselves, the impact is gigantic. But, like every great journey, the challenges and temptations were just ahead, waiting to test everything that Solomon built. And isn't it like that in our lives too? When everything seems perfect, the greatest tests arise. But not every wisdom was sufficient to prevent Solomon's fall. The king, who began so connected with God, was carried away by political covenants that came with extra packages for foreign women who worshiped other gods. Imagine someone brilliant, but gradually gives in to small temptations until you lose focus of what really matters. Who never, right? These marriages were not just for love, but political strategies. But when opening the doors for these women, Solomon also opened for idolatry. Altars to other gods began to emerge, and the king's heart, once dedicated to God, was dividing. It is like when we begin to get away from good habits, thinking that only once will not be harm. But shortly, the flame erases, and God, who has blessed Solomon so much, was saddened. The prophecy came as a hard warning the kingdom would be divided after his death. Not because God is cruel, but because our choices have consequences. Have you ever wondered how small daily decisions shape our future? Solomon shows us that, however wise we are, without constant vigilance, the decline is inevitable. Solomon's errors were not unpunished. Adversaries began to emerge from all sides, challenging their reign. It's like when life seems to charge all our flaws at once. Solomon, who lived surrounded by luxury and comfort, began to deal with constant threats, showing that even the wisest man is not exempt from the consequences of his choices. Jeroboam, one of his servants, rebelled, further dividing the kingdom. The end of Solomon's reign was marked by conflicts and instability. This reminds us that our mistakes, even if they seem insignificant at the moment, can generate great storms up front. It's like planting bad seeds and then being surprised at what we reap. The man who had everything, wisdom, power, wealth, ended his days amid turbulence. But there is a valuable lesson here no matter how much we get. If we lose our connection with God, the price can be high. Are we aware of the small daily choices that shape our destination? Solomon, at the end of his journey, wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, perhaps the deepest and most reflective of all his writings. In it, he shares his frustrations, his endless search for happiness and satisfaction. He traveled all the ways he knew wealth, pleasure, power, and fame. However, after all, he concluded that everything was vanity, like running after the wind. Have you ever felt the dissatisfaction that Solomon describes? That feeling that, as much as you earn, nothing seems to fill the inner void? He found that, no matter how pleasure life offers, nothing compares to the true joy that comes from a relationship with God. Ecclesiastes is not just a book of discouragement, but an invitation to reflect on what really matters. The great lesson that Solomon leaves us is that, despite all his mistakes, he still knew where true happiness was. Looking at his youth and all the choices he made, he calls us to remember the Creator, to seek contentment in God and not in the temporary things of this life. The search for true wisdom begins with the recognition of our dependence on God. As we look at Solomon's life, we are called to learn from his mistakes and to apply the lessons he has left us. Its way was full of glory, but also of falls. He shows us that, although we are blessed with wisdom and wealth, our true strength is to maintain faith and obedience to God. Solomon, in his wisdom, warned us about the dangers of temptations, such as luxury and pleasure, which can move us away from our divine purpose. Like Solomon, we all face challenges and temptations throughout life. Therefore, it is essential to pray, ask for wisdom and strength to resist the traps of the world. Prayer must be our constant tool, asking the Lord to guide us, teach us to live according to His will, and help us to remain firm in the faith. Only with a life of prayer and intimate relationship with God can we make wise decisions, as the King of Israel should have made. May this reflection lead us to always seek more from God and less of the passing things in the world. May we learn from Solomon's mistakes, but also to celebrate his victories. As he taught us, we have to fear God and keep his commandments, Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let's ask for wisdom to apply in our lives and strength to resist the temptations that arise. May our walk be marked by faith, repentance, and obedience to the Lord. Solomon's story challenges us to reflect on our choices and values. He was a man of great wisdom, but also of great flaws. His search for pleasure, power, and luxury led him to move away from God, a mistake that cost his reign dearly. By learning from him, we are called to question where we are seeking our happiness and security. And you? Where have you sought your contentment? Are vanity, momentary pleasure, and temptation taking the place of relationship with God in your life? Now is the time to reflect, seek wisdom, and regret the wrong ways. Remember that as Solomon has shown us, repentance is a fundamental step in restoring our peace and our bond with God. If you have identified yourself with Solomon's lessons and want to seek more wisdom to live more full and faithful, subscribe to the channel. Activate notifications to continue following content like this, which can turn your vision about life and your faith.